I've made a lot of videos discussing whether or not the Steam Deck is a good value and talked about a lot of the best budget potential PC handhelds out there. And a device that just keeps flying under the radar, at least in my opinion, that not really a ton of people talk about, but it just sort of just flies under everybody's radar and just skates by. And that is the original ROG Ally. And I know what you're thinking, everybody talks about the Ally, but not necessarily specifically the Z1 non-extreme version. I've seen that one brand new going for $400. And bear in mind that the original Ally with the Z1 non-extreme was actually, in my opinion, a terrible purchase. At around $500 to $600, that thing really wasn't worth it considering the level of performance you were getting compared to the Steam Deck. There were instances where those two were very close, and there are some times where they're a little bit further apart, but generally speaking, the Steam Deck was overall a significantly better value, performed similar enough where your saving just mattered so much more in terms of price. Because at the time, you could get a Steam Deck for $350 before they killed the cheapest one, and now the cheapest one you can get, I believe, is $400. Either way, at the time, it was just a significantly better choice to have the Steam Deck over this cheaper, less powerful version of the Ally. But as the time has gone by, as months have passed, releases have come and gone, launches have happened, it has really actually maintained its value relatively well, sticking at a price averaging around $400 brand new, and as low I have seen as $250 on the open box or used markets. You very people have commented on my videos in the past talking about PC handhelds and talking about how you've been able to get these base model non-Z1 Extreme Ally chipsets very cheaply at a reasonable cost, with them being generally quite available. Though, granted, I don't think my influence is as wide enough just to push the needle one way or the other, but on a macro scale, making a video like this does eventually, if enough people talk about it, does change the price eventually. So it is important to bear in mind that at the time I'm recording this, that is the case, but even maybe months down the line, it could be radically different. That original Z1 non-extreme Ally actually today makes a lot of sense, especially if you're wanting more flexible setup. If you're not necessarily looking to play the bleeding edge of PC games, you're not trying to play games like Oblivion Remaster, but you do want to play Stardew Valley, Minecraft with some light mods, even emulation, because the Steam Deck is just barely not powerful enough or just needs more optimization for the emulators to work well enough on that device for certain things. Like Nintendo Switch still has its kinks, and things like PS3 emulation just are barely within its reach. But that little extra performance from the Z1 non-extreme actually does go a long way in improving things like emulation. With things like EmuDeck making their way to supporting things like the Ally with Windows, it is honestly an amazing experience. And with even SteamOS becoming pseudo-compatible on these devices, it does beg the question, does this make more sense to buy over something like the Legion Go S with SteamOS? Because that Z2 Go chipset, while performs significantly better in SteamOS, when you're in Windows, it's debatable whether or not it is as good, frankly. SteamOS is really pulling this device from bad to good. Either way though, this device, the original base model Ally, makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. And if you're looking for a cheap and easy way to get into that PC handheld space, and honestly, this device might make a great case of being your all-in-one device. It still has that MPX connector thing, doohickey, where you can connect an external graphics card to it. It still has enough performance to really actually make you consider whether or not this might be a good choice or not, especially because with how things are, pricing and availability of some of these newer handhelds kind of pricing some people out, and stock just not being there for these things, it does make you start consider some alternative options. Especially if you're new to the space and you don't want to drop $1,000 on this massive investment on a thing you might not enjoy a huge amount or not really need that much out of it. Something like this base model Ally fits that kind of use case perfectly. The person who doesn't need to play the AAA games, but they do want to play their fun indie titles. It is a great way to enjoy some emulated titles because the screen on this, while not being OLED, is still relatively nice, being a 1080p 120Hz IPS type display. And yes, there are some manufacturing issues, the microSD card failures, which have been much maligned by the community. But like I said, this isn't designed for you to be playing those high-end AAA titles that are hundreds and hundreds of gigs. 512 gigs should be good enough for you to load all your favorite indie titles and just a whack ton of your favorite emulated games. Now, some of you might be saying, but that's not the only issue, there's also battery life. Battery life was terrible. And yes, I do agree. But consider this, the savings you will be getting on this device if you get it between that $250 to $350 price point, that does leave you room to get one of those battery expansion kits. Getting yourself one of those will cost you about 80 bucks. In roughly like 20 minutes worth of work, it is a really simple procedure requiring very little modification. And if you're getting a new back shell on top of that, it would just make the process way simpler and super duper easy. And doing that battery mod will take your battery life from being not great, but considering you're playing mostly indie titles and emulation games on this kind of device, honestly might end up being pretty good to honestly fantastic, because this battery brings up to the same capacity as something like the Ally X, which has fantastic battery life. And on top of that, if that device is designed to play those AAA titles, this one designed to play indie and emulated games, that's going to even last you longer, potentially. So not only does this base model Ally make an excellent argument for you to get it as a dedicated PC handheld, it also makes a great case for a dedicated handheld emulated device. Because in this retro emulation space, there are a huge amount of devices, but none quite as versatile as that base model Ally would be at that price point. If you manage to get, for the lowest price I've seen somebody get it, for around $250, even as high as $300, that is still an incredibly flexible device. And comparing it against some other emulation handhelds, sure, the setup would be way easier on those devices, but you're not going to be able to do nearly as much as some devices like this Ally. You could even emulate Android games. Other than that, I would love to hear what you guys think. Has this video inspired you to get an Ally? Because honestly, this makes a lot of sense for a lot of people, because not everybody's trying to play the brand new Oblivion Remastered or insert other AAA title that came out in the last 3 months. Because some of us, all we want to do is lay in our beds and play our games from 20 years ago because they're the only good things coming out. Oblivion Remastered withstanding. So leave it all down below. I would love to hear what you guys think about this. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All the other social media garbage down below. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.